My stepdaughter made my life miserable, but when I punished her, my husband said, "You're too harsh." His ex-wife smiled. "See? She's the problem." Years later, she called me crying. "She's out of control." I took a deep breath and said, "Funny, I thought I was the problem." When I married my husband, I thought I was gaining a family. Instead, I walked into a nightmare. His daughter, Olivia, was 14 when I met her, and from day one, she made it clear that she hated me. Not just the normal teenage kind of dislike. No, this was something worse. It was calculated. It was cruel. And it was endless. The first time I met Olivia, she ignored me. No handshake, no polite hello. Just a glance, then back to her phone like I wasn't even in the room. Her father, my husband, tried to make excuses. "She's just shy," he had said with a nervous laugh. "She'll warm up to you." She never did. In the beginning, I tried everything. I bought her gifts, thinking maybe if I showed her I cared, she'd open up. I asked about her interests, tried to talk to her like a normal person. I even suggested we go shopping or have a girls' day. She would either stare at me blankly or roll her eyes and walk away. I figured she was just adjusting to the idea of her dad being remarried. I told myself that time would fix it. Then the small things started. She'd accidentally leave the fridge door open every time she got a snack, letting the cold air pour out until everything inside was practically room temperature. She'd take my laundry out of the washer before the cycle was done and dump it on the floor so she could wash her own stuff. She'd use my hairbrush and leave it full of her hair, or borrow my shoes and return them caked in mud. If I made dinner, she'd loudly announce that she wasn't hungry, then order food an hour later and eat it right in front of me. Her father? He barely reacted. "She's just acting out," he would say. "She's a teenager. It's normal. She'll come around." She didn't. And then her mother, Vanessa, got involved. Vanessa was exactly what you'd expect from the ex-wife who still thinks she owns her ex-husband. She never remarried, never moved on. She found ways to insert herself into everything. School events, holidays, even casual outings. If we were at Olivia's soccer game, Vanessa would slide in next to my husband and start reminiscing about the old days. If we were at a parent-teacher meeting, she'd make sure to sit next to him, laughing too loudly at his jokes. But worst of all, she encouraged Olivia's behavior. I overheard them once. I had come home early from work and found them whispering in the kitchen. Vanessa was grinning as Olivia muttered something I couldn't hear. Then she said, loud enough for me to catch, "Just keep making her miserable. She won't last." I should have walked out then. Instead, I convinced myself I could make it work. It got worse. One night, I spent hours cooking dinner. I made Olivia's favorite pasta, garlic bread, a salad, the works. I thought maybe, just maybe, this would be a turning point. She sat down, took one bite, then gagged loudly. "Oh my God, what is this? It's disgusting." Her father sighed but said nothing. I clenched my jaw. "Olivia, that's rude. You don't have to like it, but you will be respectful." She smirked at me, stood up, and dumped her entire plate into the trash. "Guess I'll just order takeout." I lost it. "You ungrateful brat," I snapped. "You don't have to like me, but you will respect me in my own house." She laughed. Actually laughed. "What are you gonna do? Cry about it?" That was the moment I stopped trying. I grounded her. Took her phone. Cut off all rights. No makeup, no Netflix, no extras. If she wanted to act like a child, she would be treated like one. My husband lost his mind. "That's way too harsh," he yelled. And then, like clockwork, Vanessa showed up, shaking her head with a smirk. "See? I told you she's the problem." That was the moment I knew. I wasn't the problem, but I was done trying to fix it. After that night, the house turned into a battlefield. Olivia was furious about being grounded, and my husband wasn't far behind. He sulked, huffed, and muttered under his breath about how I was overstepping. "She's my daughter," he said one night as we argued in the kitchen. "You don't get to come in and start making the rules." I crossed my arms. "Then maybe you should try parenting her." His jaw tightened, but he had no comeback for that. Because he knew. He knew Olivia had never been disciplined a day in her life. He knew he let her run wild, and now that I was putting my foot down, he didn't know what to do. And Olivia? She made sure I paid for it. She started stealing little things. My earrings. My perfume. My favorite sweater. I'd find them in her room, tossed carelessly on the floor, just enough to let me know she had taken them. She locked herself in her room for hours, blasting music loud enough to shake the walls. She left food to rot under her bed, forcing me to scrub the stink out of the carpet. Then she escalated. One day, I walked into the kitchen and smelled gas. I turned to the stove. One of the burners was on, unlit. I froze. I had just come home from work. No one had been cooking. I turned it off, my hands shaking, and took a deep breath. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe she bumped it. But then it happened again. And again. I started double-checking everything before bed. The doors. The windows. The stove. My husband acted like I was being paranoid. "She wouldn't do that," he said, exasperated. But I saw the way Olivia smirked when I checked the knobs. I started sleeping with my door locked. Then, one afternoon, I came home and found my wedding dress in the bathtub, soaking wet, covered in bleach. I just stood there, staring at it, my breath caught in my throat. That dress had been in a sealed garment bag, tucked safely in the back of my closet. Olivia had gone looking for it. I called my husband at work. My hands were shaking as I held the phone to my ear. Your daughter ruined my wedding dress, I said, my voice dangerously calm. Silence. Then, it's just a dress. Something inside me cracked. When he got home that night, I held up what was left of the dress. The fabric was shredded, the lace practically disintegrated from the bleach. She did this on purpose, I said. He sighed. I'll talk to her. I waited. I waited for yelling, for grounding, for some kind of consequence. Nothing. When I confronted him, he just shrugged. She's going through a lot. That night, I packed a bag. Not to leave, not yet, but to clear my head. I stayed with a friend for a few days. I needed space. I needed to think. When I came back, Olivia was waiting. Thought you were gone for good, she said, picking at her nails. I didn't respond. She tilted her head, studying me. You should be. Something about the way she said it, so casual, so certain, sent a chill down my spine. I forced myself to stay calm. I live here, Olivia, and whether you like it or not, I'm not going anywhere. She laughed under her breath. We'll see. And I realized then, this wasn't just about being a difficult teenager. This was a game to her. And she was willing to play dirty. I started watching my back. Olivia had always been a nightmare. But now I wasn't just dealing with a bratty teenager. I was dealing with someone who wanted me gone. She didn't stop at the dress. That was just her opening move. One night, I was brushing my teeth when I noticed something was off. My toothbrush tasted strange. Bitter. I frowned, rinsed my mouth, and grabbed the brush to inspect it. Something was on it. Something that wasn't toothpaste. I turned to Olivia's door. Closed, locked, silent. I threw the toothbrush away and switched to using a new one every night, keeping it locked in my nightstand. I didn't say anything to my husband. What was the point? He'd just brush it off, same as always. Then the accidents started. One morning, I walked into the bathroom and nearly slipped. The floor was slick, covered in something oily. I caught myself on the sink, heart hammering. I knelt down and ran my fingers across the tile. Conditioner. Someone had squeezed an entire bottle of conditioner onto the floor. I knew who. I cleaned it up, forcing myself to stay calm. Maybe she was testing me, pushing to see when I'd finally snap. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. But then, one night, something happened that I couldn't ignore. It was late, past midnight. I was in bed, half asleep, when I heard a noise outside my door. A soft, slow creak. I froze. Then, click. My doorknob twisted. It was locked. A pause. Then, slowly, deliberately, the knob twisted the other way. My stomach dropped. I sat up, my breath stuck in my throat. I knew it was her. She was testing my lock. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just sat there, gripping my blanket, listening. After a moment, she stopped. Silence. Then, soft footsteps, retreating down the hall. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I confronted my husband. Olivia tried to come into our room last night, I said, watching his face. At midnight. He barely looked up from his phone. She probably needed something. Needed something? My voice came out sharp, almost a laugh. She was checking if the door was locked, slowly. That's not normal. He sighed, rubbing his face. You're making a big deal out of nothing. She's doing this on purpose. She's a kid. I stared at him. She's not a kid. She's a teenager who knows exactly what she's doing. And you're letting her get away with it. He groaned, standing up. I don't have time for this. And that was it. That was all he had to say. Later that night, I tried to tell myself I was overreacting. Maybe Olivia had been messing around. Maybe I was letting my paranoia get the best of me. But then, the next morning, something happened that made me realize I wasn't imagining it. I woke up to the smell of smoke. I shot out of bed, my heart pounding. It was faint but distinct, burning plastic. I ran downstairs and found Olivia in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, scrolling on her phone. Behind her, the stove was on. A plastic spatula was melting on the burner, curling at the edges, releasing thick, toxic-smelling smoke. My stomach twisted. What the hell are you doing? She glanced up. Oh, she said, looking back at her phone. Guess I forgot. I shoved past her, turning the burner off and grabbing the spatula. The damage was done. The plastic had fused to the metal. I turned to her, shaking. You forgot. I repeated. She shrugged. Relax. The house didn't burn down. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't just trying to make me miserable. She was trying to scare me. And it was working. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening for any sound outside my door. Every creak in the house made my skin prickle. My own home, the place that was supposed to be my safe space, had turned into a battlefield. And my husband, the person who was supposed to have my back, had left me to fight alone. The next morning, I woke up feeling like a stranger in my own life. My husband was already downstairs, sipping coffee like nothing had happened. Olivia was sitting at the counter, scrolling through her phone, her expression unreadable. I walked over to the stove, still coated with the melted plastic from the night before. I had left it there on purpose, just to see if anyone else would clean it up. No one had. I took a deep breath. We need to talk. My husband barely glanced at me. What now? I grabbed the ruined spatula and dropped it onto the table between us. Last night. I turned to Olivia. You left the burner on. You could have burned the house down. Olivia didn't even flinch. She didn't look guilty or apologetic. She just sighed, like I was boring her. I told you, it was an accident. No, it wasn't. My voice was deadly calm. Just like the toothbrush wasn't an accident. Just like the bleach in my wedding dress wasn't an accident. Just like the locked doors and the conditioner on the floor. None of it was an accident. I turned to my husband. And you let it happen. His eyes narrowed. You're making something out of nothing again. Nothing? I let out a sharp laugh. Your daughter has been terrorizing me for months, and you have done nothing. I've tried. I've been patient. I've given her chance after chance. But this isn't normal. And I am done pretending that it is. His jaw clenched. She's just acting out. Acting out? I snapped. She tried to scare me. She enjoys making my life miserable. And instead of being a parent, you stand here and defend her. Olivia smirked. Smirked. Like she had already won. Like this was just another round of a game she had been playing for years. I saw red. I turned to her. Why? My voice wavered, but I didn't care. Why do you hate me so much? She finally put her phone down and looked at me. For the first time in months, I saw something real behind her eyes. You ruined everything. Her voice was quiet, but it hit me like a slap. You took his attention away from me. You took his love. I stared at her. You think I took your father from you? She blinked, but I could see it in her face. She did. I let out a slow breath. Olivia, I never wanted to replace your mother. I never wanted to take him away from you. I shook my head. But the truth is, your father let this happen. He let you get away with everything. He let you treat me like garbage. And instead of teaching you respect, he taught you that you could do whatever you wanted, no matter who it hurt. My husband slammed his coffee cup down. That's enough. No, I said, my voice shaking, it's not. I turned to Olivia. You've spent years trying to push me out. And guess what? You finally won. I turned to my husband. I'm done. His face went slack. You're overreacting. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. No, I should have left a long time ago. Olivia's smirk finally faltered. I walked upstairs, packed my things, and walked out the front door. I didn't cry. Not that day. The tears came later, when I realized how much time I had wasted, how much of myself I had given to a family that never wanted me. I had spent years trying to earn love and respect from people who had no intention of giving it. Months passed. I rebuilt my life. It was hard, but it was mine. Then, one day my phone rang. It was Vanessa. She was crying. She's out of control, she sobbed. She maxed out my credit cards. She's been arrested. She treats me like garbage. I don't know what to do. I took a deep breath. Funny, I said, my voice steady. I thought I was the problem. And then I hung up. I never looked back.